The terrace is for guests only.
Monsieur, the young lady will be joining me. What did you do?
I'm a lady's companion.
Maxim de Winter. His wife died last year and is in dire need of company.
I'm Monsieur de Winter.
What are you doing?
Oh, you'll see.
This week. I'd like to never forget it.
Come to Mandalay. I'm asking you to marry me, you little fool. Mrs. de Winter, may I present Mrs. Danvers?
Welcome to Mandalay.
Never seen a house like this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you'd been a lady's maid.
This is all very new to me.
Oh, I'm sure you won't disappoint him, madam, if that's your concern. We did a lot of entertaining when the late Mrs. de Winter was alive.
You can talk to me about her. I have no secrets from you.
All marriages have their secrets.
Has Max ever talked to you about the accident?
I don't know what you're talking about. How am I supposed to know anything if you don't tell me?
She's still here. Can you feel her?
You're tossing and turning all night. Rebecca. Bad dream.
She was the love of his life. I wonder what she's thinking about you. Taking her husband, using her name. He doesn't love you.
I said I want the truth.
You didn't know her. You know what he did.
He can't go on living in that big old house with her ghost.
I don't believe in ghosts.
Welcome to this BFI Home event. I'm Charlotte Regan and I'm going to be talking to Ben Wheatley about his new film, Rebecca.
Hello.
I feel like you've just fucked us both up here because we're both terrible at just like chatting for ages and really awkward. So it's just going to be like a lot of awkwardness for like 45 minutes, isn't it?
That's all right.
I'm hoping you like hold up the chat and like every question I ask, I want you to chat for like at least 3 minutes. Like, don't be giving me those like, yeah, it was good, the answers, and making me like struggle, Ben.
I did a Q&A with Nick Rowe a few years ago, and I prepared a lot for it, and then I didn't say anything. He fucking opened his mouth and went for an hour, and it was amazing. I just sat there and went,
yeah, nice. That's what I'm expecting from you. Like,
that's what you're hoping. I'm not going to give it to you though.
it's like a monologue about your experience on the film for 45 would be like sick. What is your happiness out of 10 today?
Out of 10, I think it's probably close to 10, though I've been mainly scanning storyboards, so I'm quite enjoying the monotonousness of that. Though I've been thinking about buying a scanner with a motor on it that will pull the paper through, but I've not managed to do that. So I've been scanning hundreds and hundreds of storyboards one by one today.
Why is that like a big decision? A scanner with a motor thing? Is it pricey?
Yeah. Well, it's not pricey, but it's useful.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just haven't got around to doing it, and I'm slightly punishing myself by thinking, oh, fuck it, I can't be bothered to do the research to buy the right one, so I'll just scan them one at a time like a hero.
Yeah, just taking it for the team. Why, are you hand drawing them?
Yeah.
Oh, what a nightmare.
I don't mind the drawing. It's actually just taking longer to scan them than it is to draw them. That's the hell of it.
Not so much like a nightmare for you, but for everyone else if your drawings are a bit shitty, but you just won't get a storyboard artist.
Well, this is it. But you have to draw them first before they go to the storyboard artist, I find. Then you're in it. But you then have to spend a lot of time writing on the little eggs that are supposedly faces, who they are and all this. But I usually just say, like, women have got long hair down like that. And men, and there's the first man is an egg and the second man has got a moustache. And then the third man's got a beard, and then that sorts out a lot of the trouble.
That does it.
Sometimes they have a scar, even if they don't in the story, and then you can you can work it out better that way.
I really struggle with like perspective on storyboards. So I get them back from the storyboard artist and they're all flat on, and I'm like, no, Jamie, that was obviously a shot from above. And he's like, no, like the stickmen are all the same throughout. So it's like really hard, isn't it, to draw like perspective? Or maybe not, maybe I'm just shitty at it.
No, it is hard, and I struggle with it a lot. Or I can draw a style of perspective, but it's only like 45 degrees, which is monotonous after a while in the boards. But yeah, I saw this thing the other day. Is this brilliant documentary about storyboard artists? I forget the name of it, but it's on Prime, I think. And they were saying that, like in the golden days of Hollywood, these guys could draw not just in perspective, but in perspective to lenses. So the drawings themselves were technical drawings that could then be turned into set designs, and they would work. The shots would actually work. Whereas my drawings are like, oh yeah, that'll fit in there and that'll fit in there, and then you get there on the day, you've got no chance because the lens would, everything would be out of focus, or the lens would be too wide or whatever. But I think that seemed to be the dark art of storyboarding that's maybe slightly missing.
Actually being able to like do it well. I think like my DOP just despairs whenever we have a project where we can't afford a storyboard artist, and he just has to like do it based on my stickmen. I don't even go as far as you to do scars and like hair and stuff. I just assume he'll know like which each egg is. Like I just like, come on, Aaron, like you should work it out. You're not paying attention, are you, if you don't know who's who? Yeah. No,
I mean, I like them because I like my own drawings. I've got a form of dysmorphia with them where they look pretty good to me, even though they're not. So I fill in all the gaps on them, but then I can, when I put them all into a PDF and flick through them, I can see like the film moving, and that's pretty useful, I think.
Yeah. All right. I'll stop asking you like obscure, dodgy questions, because everyone will be like, well, ask about the film then. But yeah, I really liked the film. I didn't even know there was a film that Hitchcock had done. I'm really not that great with like cinema and watching films, so I didn't have a clue that this was like another film. So I won't have, and I've not watched it since, so I won't have like any artistic questions about the comparison between but I imagine, I don't know, I kept watching interviews of you and I was like, Jesus Christ, if someone else asked that again, like how it was like going from making remake, I was like, oh, so maybe you'll be happy that I'm dodging that subject anyway.
I've got my answers down pat now. I'll go into robot mode if you ask me that specifically, because I've answered it so many times. But it's more about the adaptation of the book. But mainly, as with all film, it's the reaction to the script that you have. It's not it would never be a reaction to another movie in that respect. It'd be too complicated to do that, I think. But yeah, it is interesting, like that film is often the dominant culture and will take over and roll over the top of other stuff. And in a way that all the conversation has been about the Hitchcock film as if Hitchcock wrote the book, which he obviously did not. And that seems to be a kind of cultural blind spot where people go, they don't mind making that mistake and just focusing on that, where there's another point of view here, which is like the work of a woman novelist is then replaced by a bloke.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting. But I mean, we had it. I often get it though. I mean, on Kill List, there was lots of conversation about the Wicker Man, and it was almost like when I was in America talking about it, and people talk about the Wicker Man as if it's the only thing that ever happened, like that was the beginning of any idea of what a kind of pagan society might look like, was the Wicker Man. Whereas actually, when you live in Britain, it's a whole history of stuff all around you all the time, And I think that sometimes there is a kind of myopia to film that happens in.
It takes over.
Yeah, it's all that everyone thinks about, weirdly.
It's like, it's mad different to your other stuff, this one, isn't it?
It is and it isn't, I think. I mean, I rewatched it the other day after reading lots of stuff about how it was so different from everything else. But there's plenty of things that are similar that run through it. But then all the films are different from each other in a way. Well, that was always the intention. So, Kill List to Sightseers is very different. Sightseers to Field in England, that's very different. So it's a conscious decision you know, to try and have each project be as different from the last as possible.
Yeah. But do you get lots of like, I seem to get like stuck making the same thing, because once I've made something, everyone's like, let's just get that but different. And I seem to like everything that I get sent is always the same but different. So do you like purposely try and veer away from that, I suppose?
Yeah, but also because half of the stuff, or more than half of the stuff I make is self-started. Either I've co-written it or I'm part of the production company that sets it up. So that's much easier then to dodge about and do different things. But it's when, because I had the same thing, and after I did Kill List, I got loads of scripts about dead kids, you know, like really horrible scripts. I'm like, oh, why would I want to do this? I don't want to be the bloke who makes dead kids films. That's horrible. So yes, that was definitely a thing. It was kind of, I saw that early on as a pitfall that you'd end up. It's pragmatism as well, because you end up going down the road of least resistance if you're not careful, and then you'll just do the same thing. But then it depends what you're interested in as well, you know. And I think you could, if the thing you were doing was just drama, then there'd be no shame in that. You know, doing an endless stream of dramas, you know, that would be fine. But it's when it becomes too specific that it's difficult, I think.
Yeah, I'm just gonna like use this as an excuse to ask you like the questions I want answers to. So I'm sure like no one will be happy with these questions being yeah, I want answers to them, so I don't mind. Who's like your favorite person on set? You know, like at lunch, yeah, I always sit with the location manager and the sound person. Who's your favorite, or do you mix it up?
I think because they all watch these interviews, I'll be very dangerous to say who my favourite was, but you can see who the favourites are because they're the core crew from all the movies, you know, going back to Down Terrace. So I kind of jump about between people, but you know, it also depends on when you break for lunch and what time. So you rarely be eating with the electricians because they'll go early.
Yeah,
So it's like, you know, so but it's been a core group of about 6 or 7 people from the start. So the Laurie Rose and Bobby Entwistle, and you know, that who were the DOP and sound department, and then Anita Christie who's the continuity, and Nick Gillespie second camera. So it's like there's a lot of people that are kind of that we've all been through a similar experience from over the last 10 years, basically.
Yeah. And do you and Laurie like do like, I don't know, like hang out at each other's houses and do like 10-hour sessions where you're both just like stuck and got no clue what to do? Or do you just see each other on like the tech recce's and at meetings?
It's weird because it's like the Beatles, we only live down the road from each other. What was it from which one is it? Help, isn't it? Where they all live in the same house on the same road. But I could literally I could get to his house in about 3 minutes from here, but no, we don't. I think he's probably had enough of me after 8 weeks. 8 weeks, intense weeks of a year is enough for anybody. And I think it's kind of you know, in the 8 weeks of the shooting, you live a lifetime of friendship in those 8 weeks, and it's enough. And then, but because we work regularly, that's fine, you know. So it's every year you kind of come back to it.
I had like some magical view of you guys like just going cinema every day together, sitting in the park together, like breakfast.
No, but that's the thing of like the life of the director and the life of the DOP. The DOP works all the time, you know. So they'll do your job and then they're off. You know, they have a week off and then they go off on another job and have another director they hang out with, you know, for 8-9 weeks. And it is a frustration, I think, because you know, if you're lucky, you're working once a year, but the DOP will work 3 or 4 times a year if it's going gangbusters for them. And that's so you when you look at your filmography and you go, oh, I've done, you know, what have I done now, about 10 films, but Laurie's IMDb's like now like 30 films. So you know, I'd like to work as much as that if I could, but there's not. Most of my time is spent kind of writing or trying to put projects together or in post, so that, you know, the shooting is only a small proportion of the year usually.
Yeah. What's like your favorite bit of it?
Just changes all the time. I mean, at the moment I'm going back to the storyboarding I really enjoy storyboarding, and I like having an excuse to draw. And I came into making films through drawing, and when I was a teenager, and I think that I fell out of drawing in the middle of it all, and I missed the drawing, and and I've gone through all these different things of using, you know, iPads and, you know, pens and all that shit, and I'm back with pencils and paper, and I think there's a connection there of almost like craft of having, and the more you draw, the better you get at as well. So, you know, the thing I'm drawing boards for at the moment is it's 1,200 boards I've drawn in the last 12 weeks. So it's just like, and you can really just project yourself into the perfect version of the film. Only later it all gets a bit more. What's he barking at?
Not happy with that process. He's like, Ben, reconsider that. Like, yeah.
Well, he's gone back to sleep now. He's hiding under his arm because it's the terror of drawing 1,200 storyboards. He hasn't got any thumbs. That's why he doesn't like it.
Raging about it, yeah. All this chat about drawing. And do you like work it out before you storyboard in a way, like, or is it the storyboarding? I don't know. Sometimes when I'm storyboarding, I then have to go back to the script because I'm like, oh shit, of course that scene won't work, and I've figured that out now. For some reason, I don't have like the foresight to see what's not going to work until I storyboard. Yeah,
I think that's part of it. Is the visualization of it. It's the first version of the film, and so you're in it, so you can look at it, and then, I mean, one of the reasons I do it is because, like, the sexy bits of film, like the action or whatever, that people that traditionally they storyboard, that's fair enough because it's expensive items that have to be sorted out. But it's the harder bits of filmmaking, which is people entering and exiting scenes, or the fact that the thing I've really liked storyboarding for is like, so if I got the script, I storyboard it and go, oh, I've drawn a lot of kitchens in this storyboard. There's a lot of scenes in this kitchen. What's going on? And I really feel it because I have to draw it so much. And then it makes you look at the whole script in a visual way that just reading it, you just skip over that stuff. And often I find like the attrition of reading a script, because they're never interesting to read scripts, I don't think. And you get description, you just skip over it often. And so it's much harder to find yourself in it just from reading it, and because it is a visual medium, it needs to be treated in a visual way, you know. So I enjoy, yeah, I think that's my favorite bit of it. But I do enjoy editing, and increasingly I guess for the first like 10 years of working, I found being on the floor was really stressful, but I really enjoy shooting now because I don't feel stressed anymore, because I kind of know what's going to happen. However badly it's going, it's always, you can get out of it, you know, you survive it.
Yeah. And do you really enjoy it, but like on the last day, like think, thank God, like I don't want to do that for a while, or no? No,
I usually cry, and that's the hard bit, and I have to hide, because when it's on the last thing and everyone's like, yeah, and I'll have to go away and go, oh fuck, you know, and have a cry. And it's really embarrassing, and also it's the stress of it coming towards the end of the shoot, going, oh my God, I've got this last day to deal with, and this crying problem of like having to go and hide somewhere. So it's kind of that, but sometimes it doesn't happen, but it is really tricky. It's very emotional because of the tension, because of the pressure of like being squeezed through a toothpaste tube for however long the shoot is, and you get to the end of it, and then you don't have to, your seconds aren't being managed as much, you know, you have a release of time. And I think that's the main, that's when I feel, you know, oh, that's good that I don't have to do that. But I do miss the rigor of the work, you know, because that's what it's all builds toward, is to be doing it. And when you're not doing it, it's kind of like, who are you, you know? Yeah, man. I get like a week after any shoot, even if it's like a short one, I get like a week of just sadness. Like life feels really empty after being around like 40 people that most of them you end up loving them, or at least liking them, you hope. And then afterwards I'm like, oh, life's so empty. And John, my partner's here, like, but what about me? And I'm like, no, John, it's not the same. Like, it's not the same as, yeah. I don't have that. No, I'm happy to be home, definitely, afterwards. But it's kind of, yeah, I mean, I think it's more about the pace of life, or the tunnel visionness of it. It's much simpler when you're making stuff, because all you're doing is, but also the other flip side of it is you become infantilized, that you lots of things that you would normally look after yourself don't get other people do it. And I think that becomes that's dangerous, you know, in many ways.
Do you ever, like, when you're filming something, like, get really stumped and just think, oh, like, my editor's really gonna have to sort this out? Or no, you just like stop and think, let me figure it out, instead of relying on the editor to fix it?
I've last few on the bigger films like Free Fire and Rebecca, on Free Fire I edited on set, so as soon as it came out the camera I just cut it on the spot, so I always knew it was all right. And then on Rebecca, I had John Amos was editing it, and he was with me the whole time, just sat there. And between him and Anita Christie, we would work it all out. We'd just go, right, okay. So, or Anita would go, oh God, they picked up the handbag there and they didn't put it down over there. We're screwed. And we're like, oh, okay. And so we would then slightly adjust the blocking to fit it. But it was fixing it on the fly rather than getting to the edit suite 2 weeks later or a month later and going, why didn't I not cover that off? And I like that. And that way of working is more like live television used to be, like the kind of gallery, go to camera 5, go to camera 6, that kind of live TV thing. And it makes the continuity role much stronger. So instead of them just, I never really understood continuity until it took me a while to understand the value of it, because how long a cigarette is or how much wine is in a glass, I don't care about any of that. And I would always go to Anita, just dump your notes when I go into the edit, I don't care about that stuff. But the reality is that what her role is more like film police, and it's the checking of screen direction and things that are going to screw up the whole thing. So when she's there with the editor, the two of them together, there's such a control over the images that you're capturing that you're always going to be able to cut something out of it. So, and I like that because it means I can sleep at night. I don't have to worry. I don't finish the day going, oh God, I didn't get that shot, because it's always, I just look at it and I can show. But also it means for the conversation, like if you're talking to the AD and they go, oh, do you want to do this and this? And you go, well, no, here you go, it's done. And they go, oh, and then you can move on without any of these doubts or because you don't want to get in that cycle of like that thing of going, oh shit, I haven't covered it. Oh, let's just do 2 singles here as well, and another 2 here, and all that, which is just pissing. Basically, that's the shit that happens just before lunch, and then you're screwing yourself at the end of the day, So I try to avoid that as much as possible.
How did you feel like after the first edit of this? Like, did you go home? I always go home feeling a bit rough. Like, I'm like, oh God, is this what I've made? Like, this is shocking. But no.
It's always sickening. And and it's never got any easier since the beginning. And it seems to be a common issue. But I think it's because the rough cut itself is just the pacing of it. It's only relative to itself. So it's scene by scene, it's only relative to those scenes, because you've just gone, right, this scene, this scene, this scene. But the rhythms of a feature are up and down the movie. They're very long rhythms. They can be half-hour or 40-minute rhythms, or the callbacks to the images can be an hour later or so. And none of that stuff is in the rough cut. It's all just it's all out of time, basically. So when you watch it, you really feel it. But I've had it, Sightseers was one. I think the rough cut for that was 4 hours, and it was shocking. I remember I was watching it and there was like one laugh at the beginning and there was nothing. It was like a wasteland after that. And I remember being in the room with Andy Stark and Claire Jones, the producers, and they were just like backing away, just going, oh, what have you done? This is so bad. I was like, oh. so yeah, and I don't think I've ever felt as bad about anything apart from that one. That was the worst, and then it was fine. So this kind of balances the whole thing off. In the end, you kind of go, it's like taking medicine. You watch it and you go, yeah, I know it's going to be bad. Well, I always think of it a bit like Chernobyl or something. It's those blokes that were up on the roof brushing the radiation off the top of the roof, so you can only look at it for like a small amount of time and then you have to stop.
Yeah. And do you I suppose I don't know how much it's dictated by other people, but so the producers have a look quite early on then, or do you usually want to be at least a little bit happy with it before you start getting other people's opinions?
Depends what it is. I mean, in the Rook films, they're all much more bound up in, if I'm doing it with Andy Stark and Amy Jump and all that, then we all know what it is. So there's no kind of You know, there's no like here presentation of the film. Here we go. You know, because Andy and I both come from post-production anyway, so he'll be on the Rook films. Will be, you know, the post supervisors often, and also handling how the edit's physically done. So we'll all know what it is. There's no hiding from it. On something like Rebecca is different because it's more, there's a much more layers of production. So on Rebecca, it was like I think I had my 8 weeks or something of director's cut, and then I presented it to everyone. Then we all had a discussion about it, and then it went back and forth from there. But in that one, to be honest, I was keener to get it out the door as fast as possible, so that to get through that moment of, so that to bring everybody in, because it's no point on a film like that. Is no point kind of running and gunning, because you're never going to win. You know, in that respect, you've got to all be in agreement about it. Otherwise, it's a hell world. You know.
Yeah. Did anyone like come in with like a really sick gem of a comment that totally changed the edit or made something work?
Not really, no. It was general. I think a lot of it had been thrashed out from the start because of the there was a lot of discussion on the script. The script had been in development for a long time, so, and then we had a lot of rehearsals and stuff, so there was a lot that kind of side of it had gone over a lot. But this was the first time, I think, because John Amos was editing it, and this is the first film I've not been like, you know, a lot of the films I've co-edited, or and some of them I've edited on my own, you know, so that was a different experience. But I think what it more was that I was more open to experimenting with it. On when I'm editing myself, I'm just go, right, that's it, done, bosh. I'm not going back. You know, I'm not changing anything. And on this, because John's got the patience of a saint, we changed it a lot, and between John and I, we've changed it around a lot. And then when other people got involved, we changed it around with them as well. So it was always kind of being scrutinized and changed and tested.
Like sometimes I don't know what like note to give to actors, but they're just like being too big and theatrical, and no one seems to love bring it down. Like, come on, bro, bring it down a bit, would you? So yeah. What, like, your equivalent of bring it down?
I mean, I kind of do, what I do is like, I want to see the top of it and the bottom of it. So you go, let's have the top, let's see what you got. What's the biggest, you know, lean into it. Let's see how big it will go. And now let's see how low it'll go. And then let's see what the middle looks like. And then that way that it doesn't feel like it's not such a criticism then. It's more of we'll see what this spectrum of this performance can be. And we'll work it out from there, which is what you want anyway. You know, because again, I think there's like quite a lot, there's a on the day dysmorphia of like, you're watching the performance and you think it's brilliant, but that's what could be happening is theatre happening, where you're watching some theatre, and that theatre performance is completely different, and you could be seduced by that and kind of think you've got it in the bag, but what you really wanted was something much smaller, or you really enjoy the performance so much you don't notice how slowly they're moving, which I've been caught up on before, and you get it back to the editor and go, oh my God, it took them 10 minutes to get across the room. The scene is now enormous. And because of the way I've shot it, I can't cut it. I'm an idiot. You know, why did this happen to me? You know, and I think everything can always be quicker in that respect. And there's a weird empathy feedback loop between you and the performer, because certainly if they're doing stuff, I find anyway, if they're doing stuff like they're really upset, you feel really upset for them and worry about them, and it's so stupid. Or even just having, if they've got like a scar or something, or like they're in a fight, and I feel like, oh no, they're all right, you know, it's you know, so I kind of and all these things can knock off your balance of judgment a lot of the time, and it's to do with people being good. That's the problem.
Yeah,
but that's why I think that's the right way to do it. You kind of go, okay, you want it. Because I do want to see the height. I do want to see the biggest version of the performance, because it's interesting to see where they'll go. And I remember we did have it on Kill List where, and that was learning from the actors really, and it was with Michael Smiley and Neil Maskell, and we had a scene where it was quite, you know, it really shouty and everyone's screaming at each other, and they were like, yeah, I think this is too much. I was like, oh yeah, maybe. And then we just took it right down to nothing, and that was what it should be, because people rarely emote. And what I find is like a lot of it's about looking on, YouTube's really interesting for when you see people in really emotional situations and there's no emotion. Most of us are only in theatre and like soap operas do people really get to that animated. Most of the time they're just blank. Certainly in like high stakes stuff, it's all quite, the emotion comes afterwards, doesn't it, when they're having to think about what happened to them, you know.
Yeah. What are you like really bad at? You know, like I'm really bad at people coming in and out of scenes. So that it always looks so bad, and then I end up with an edit where no one enters or exits. Everyone's just there. They're just sat there, always ready. What are you dodgy at?
I don't know. I mean, that is hard, and I think the thing that because I've come from editing, I kind of I'll maybe cut too much sometimes and compress, and that's the other way of, you know, in the same way the actor is, you want them big and small, you want compression, like the edit to compress down to like from coal to a diamond, but then breathe back out. And it's the breathing back out bit is the hardest thing, I think, because you fall in love with the compression of the, like it being smashed down to nothing, and then you've got, and that moment is the hard bit where you've managed to cut the bits that make the film good out in an attempt to make it flow faster so you don't notice things. And I think that's where it lives, like the heart of the film. You can extinguish what was good if you're not careful, and you need that to be able to step back from that to work that out.
Yeah. And on like on Rebecca, did you kind of decide on a lot of stuff in the rehearsals, or I don't know, like what is your style? Does a lot of stuff kind of come up on the day, or do you get quite set in rehearsals and things like that?
Well, there was improvisation on set, but it's not really a film that lends itself to too much improvisation. Certainly when you've got Armie Hammer having to deal with the accent as well, you're just going to screw him by making him make words up. And also, and we've had this as well with period improvisation, is a nightmare because words come into play at different times and you've got all this anachronistic speech patterns and whatnot. So I think that, yeah, most of it was worked out. I mean, I'm always open for, I want to see how the actors move in a space, because I think if you are too prescriptive with it, that's when things can look really stiff. So I often I'll have a look at what they're doing, what's the most natural way of moving through it, and then that blocking will then I'll set the cameras to that if I've got time. But then other times it's like, you know, when those kinds of discussions where people go, well, what if I go over here, and what if I do this, and what if I do that? I said, well, and then in the back of your head you're going, well, if you do that, then we're going over. That's an hour. That move over to that window is an hour. That move back is another hour. That's 2 hours of overtime now. So that there's like the creative side of it, but then there's a pragmatic side that is an ongoing kind of discussion of it.
Yeah, and was that like with some of your older films? Did you do more a thing where like you kind of lit a room or you lit a space and then they could move around wherever they wanted and the camera was kind of dictated by them? Did this kind of differ in that way, in that it was like each shot was so like cinematic and intentional and it was kind of less free, or no?
To a degree, I think that the way it's lit is similar to, I mean, Laurie has never had a lot of lights in the room, you know, and it's always been, it's like on Rebecca there's a lot of lighting, but it's more like reinforcing the natural light from the windows. So you can, and I you know, we've always worked that way, where it's not like we're shooting one way, we're going to turn around, that's another hour to turn back the other way. It doesn't, you know, because I don't like working like that. So usually it unless I'm misremembering it, it's usually a lit space that we then work into. But there is a lot of storyboarding in Rebecca, so there's a lot of planning in terms of what certain shots would look like. But then we didn't, I'd come off a show called Strange Angel, which I'd just done in the States, which was like a lot of set builds. And in the set builds, you can dictate all those camera movements a lot more. Whereas this stuff on location, it's like, we didn't really, you had to kind of meet it halfway. So a lot of that kind of really specific kind of camera work that you would plan ahead of time, you couldn't really do. So we kind of there was half and half of making it up on the spot. Also, because you want to see what the actors are how they're gonna move. Because I've got better at it, but if you block too intentionally, you can really take the life out of the performances.
Yeah. Does Laurie operate himself?
Yes. On this one he did. So he was A camera, and then James Lawton was doing the B camera. But James then is a Steadicam operator, so he would operate Steadicam stuff. So we'd jump back and forth doing that, which was really good. And I'd never really it's weird over the films. I kind of slowly, you start off with handheld, and then you basically, by Field in England, we'd got a dolly. So that's quite a few movies in by that point. And then by the time we get to High Rise, I had a Technocrane, and that was the first time I worked on a Technocrane. And then now Steadicam is something I'd used Steadicam all the way through in bits on an ads and stuff, but I never had one to hand the whole time. So we shot. There's a lot more Steadicam action in Rebecca than in the other movies, and but each piece of kit you have to learn. It's like it gives a different kind of grammar to what you're shooting, and so but it's also quite high pressure to learn it on the job.
I'm always like filled with dread when the DOP says like Steadicam, and it's like, and they're always like, yeah, just quick 10 minutes to set it up, and then bang, like an hour and a half later and it still won't balance, and there's some error message, and you're just like draining time for this tiny little shot. Hardly
or that in the back of your head that if you just do a 2-camera handheld like that, you're done. You do a whole film. I mean, we just shot a thing that was 15 days, which is a feature, and with 2 cameras like that, and it was great, and it's back to basics, free movement, and do whatever you like. But it's kind of, as soon as you get into the 3-point lighting and backlighting and all that kind of stuff, that's when it starts to become a time thief,
Yeah. What is like Sam Riley has always like reminded me of Neil a little bit. Just like some of their like qualities. I don't know what it is. And I find myself, whenever I'm casting for something, I look for them same qualities. It's kind of that weird like edginess where they could kind of go either way. Like I never really know like what their intentions are, I suppose. Is there like particular things you're drawn to in actors? Not that as real people they're like that, like Neil is lovely, but for some reason he just has that about his performance in a great way.
Yeah, I mean, I was laughing with Sam about this role, the part in Rebecca, because it's like the 3rd time we've worked together in 3 movies, and and he was saying it's like the arsehole trilogy, because he kind of plays a git in all 3 films. But I think that was as much as just I enjoyed working with Sam, and I wanted to work with him again and again, and I was lucky that there were roles that fit his kind of thing. But yeah, you're right, with Neil it's the same thing, and with Michael Smiley as well. It's like that kind of, there's obviously intelligence behind the eyes and the unpredictability of real people, as opposed to people who are just remembering their lines. Which you see, even that style could be fine as well, but there's something about, there's a verite kind of aliveness about those performers, which you just, that's what you're after. And I don't know what it is, it's like the translation of the distance between themselves and the acting is paper thin, rather than someone who has to then perform something and jump into something. I think that's what makes them really great, these people.
Yeah. I always feel gutted when I get in the edit with like footage of Neil, and he's like always just done it brilliantly on the first take, and then little by little I've just fucked him up with shit notes, and I'm like, well, I'll just use that first take then, when you bastard, like you've just done my job for me, made me look like, all right. I
don't know what I find that as well, and I don't know what it is, and you have to try, you have to investigate it. That's the job on the day. But there's no shame in it not being right the first time. It's fine. I mean, when I was doing telly, the first time I started doing telly, I always thought it was a real crime that you didn't give an actor a second take, and often you'd be up against it. You go, right, that's it. Whoa, moving on. And I always thought that was like the worst thing you could do. But in a way, not really. If it's all going well, then it doesn't matter. I mean, it's more how much you trust your own judgment in the edit suite, isn't it? Because you don't want to be the person who went, oh yeah, first take's the best take, and then you get in the edit suite and go, oh no, it wasn't, it was terrible. you know, or not terrible, but just the timing was wrong or doesn't fit, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in Kill List with Neil that was all first take stuff, and or one take only, and we was just all, you know, there was. I mean, I remember him kind of going, "Oh, you know, there's that whole big sequence, and we needed to. Maybe we could have done more takes." I said, "No, it was great. I don't know why we would do more takes. It's only it'll only be just different, you know."
Yeah. What is that? I'll be like devastated if you don't know the answer to this as well.
Okay, prepare for devastation.
Like, pressure in it. But like, what is the font on the end credits? Like both the fonts. So I was like, those fonts are.
The end credits. Well, I don't know. It's Julian House designed it.
Don't start throwing names at me for who designed it. You don't know.
But what I'm saying is, Julian, the Rebecca title itself is bespoke, so it's come out of a font that he's then adapted. But Julian's brilliant. He did a lot of the Peter Strickland stuff. I don't know if you've seen any of that stuff, but he's designs posters and album covers and stuff like that. So he's ace.
Can you not like sway him into uploading the font to like thefont.com or something so we can all download it? Like, give it a go.
I'll ask him.
I just kept thinking like this font would look so cool on treatments.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? You end up getting your. I remember doing because I direct ads and stuff, and I know people who, you know, you put together a treatment for when you're doing an ad, and we found that Sightseers had found its way onto loads of treatments. I'm like, what am I? I directed it.
Yeah, no.
I could have had those jobs. No, apparently not.
When it's like a film like this and there's so many people involved, or like such big companies involved or whatever, if they like send you the trailer and the trailer's really dodgy, do you get to say that, or no, you're kind of stuck with the trailer? Not that the trailer's very good, but I just wonder.
Well, the story of trailers in general is a thing I've kind of had to confront quite early on, and same with posters as well. It's like, I know what a good poster looks like, and I know what a good trailer is, but do I know what a good poster is to get people into the cinema, and do I know what a good trailer is that will take the public and make them go and watch a film? And am I ready to bet my you know, bet everything on being right over someone whose job it is to do that?
Yeah.
You know, and like, well, maybe, and you can win that battle and go, oh, you know, change all this, and now you're happy, you know, in yourself about your trailer, and you haven't given too much of the plot away, and all the nice shots that you like are in it. But if people are watching it and going, well, I don't like this, I'm not going to go and see it, that's on you. And there's no point hiring all these people to do all that work if you're then going to throw your toys out of the pram and make them change it all. That's how I think about it, you know, because I want as many people to go and see the thing as possible, you know. So then you do end up with posters which are just big faces sometimes, and they're not great posters, and you wouldn't put them on your wall, but they work on the tube. That's all that counts. Like what your front room looks like is irrelevant, or whether you feel happy in yourself as you watch your trailer is irrelevant as well, really, I think. But the thing is changed now anyway, because you'll get multiple trailers and multiple posters, so it's not such a problem. And also on Rebecca, I did like the trailer as soon as I saw it. Some of them I'm just like, yeah, that's brilliant. Some of them, there'll be tweaks and stuff, but I think that, yeah, it's a tricky game to get put yourself into the gears of that kind of machine.
Yeah. And what do you drink on set? Do you drink tea or coffee?
Depends. On the last film I didn't drink any caffeine.
Why?
I don't know. It was really weird, and I kind of had a massive headache. So I drank more peppermint tea. So that, but because I think because during lockdown I'd managed to drink so much coffee that I'd actually done myself an injury in terms of like being addicted to coffee. So it was just giving me a blinding headache the whole time. But I tried different stuff on set. I mean, on Rebecca, we had Amy, my wife, was saying, "Oh, why don't you?" She'd found these like glucose drinks that runners use. So I started drinking them because they're kind of like quick energy boost.
Yeah.
But it was all going well until one of them exploded in my pocket, and then I was I'm not having any more of this. But yeah, it's tea often, or water. I mean, increasingly now it's just water.
It's not exciting, Ben. I thought you were going to hit us with like a real gem, like
What, like gin and tonic or something?
like some homemade tea recipe that keeps you happy all day, or
No, those days, I don't know. It's water mainly. Just stay hydrated. It's as exciting as that.
This is like a really exciting chat for everyone as well. I'm sure it's what everyone's always wondered is like what tea you
Well,
drink.
you've got to thin them out for the as a reward for the end of the conversation, when it's like that's where all the revelations come out.
What film do you think or what collection of films do you think you'd really like mess up if they like asked you to do it?
Mess up?
Yeah, like a Ben Wheatley, whatever. Like, what would be a really dodgy one?
Oh, it's tricky. Well, any musical, because I hate musicals, so that would be a problem.
Yeah.
I think maybe a kind of reimagining of Breaking Glass or something.
I really want like a Ben Wheatley James Bond, but like a really proper creepy, like everyone's fucked kind of one. Like that would bring me so much joy.
Yeah, I mean, I think the world of Bond is interesting. I mean, we were watching A Man with a Golden Gun last night, me and my son, and laughing so much because the golden gun in Golden Gun is made out of a fag packet, a lighter, a cufflink, and an old Beryl pen. And that was just really making us chuckle. And also, gold is such a bad thing for a gun because it's the softest metal. So as soon as you fired it, it'd be fucked.
It looks cool, Ben. Come on.
Yeah, it does, but it's rubbish.
What films does your son like?
All sorts, really. I mean, I was lucky. Kind of, he was just the right age to catch all the Marvel stuff, so we went together and can kind of grow up through those. But he's more like just looking at stuff on YouTube really now.
I kept wondering if Lily in this was just going mad because she felt so out of place because of her class difference to everyone else. I kind of secretly hoped it was like a psychological, like working class kind of.
Well, it is a dream, isn't it? It's like a memory of a dream, the whole thing. None of it's necessarily real. And I think that's the thing. That's the trickiness of Du Maurier as much as anything. But like what I like about it is Maxime de Winter's story about how he shot Rebecca. I don't believe any of that. I don't think any of that's true because he's the only person left to tell the story of it. And it's like, if he's not telling, and I don't think she's telling the truth about a lot of it either. And yeah, but I think the class element was something that was conscious of, certainly with Danvers, the Danvers side of it, and and how the rest of the house worked around them, and the fact that and then the people having the party in the basement while everyone else is having the party at the top. I wanted to have a feeling that the house wasn't just a sympathetic, like how modern Downtony world of like everyone's chums and like people are talking to each other all the time, like, all right, mate, how's it all going? Yeah. Oh, which is just, I don't feel was correct. There seems to be some kind of weird revisionism about the class structure of the, certainly of the 20th century and the turn of the century, 19th to 20th century. It doesn't, it seems to be, there's a kind of weird equality that's crept into the kind of portrayal of that stuff, which is just not true, I don't think.
Did you get to go and like location scout loads of epic stately homes? Yeah,
and it's a kind of mixture of like National Trust places and then private places, and that was weird going. I mean, we actually went to the house that the book was based on as well. That's not in the film, but so I got to see the real staircase and all the whole thing and see what that was like. And and it's just another world, you know, complete with that. And they actually still had butlers and all that kind of stuff there, you know.
That's quite. I keep like hoping to like think of an idea and write an idea that's like set on an oil rig, because I've always wanted to like go and scout oil rigs, but I can't seem to like think up.
Well, this will put you off. You can't go on an oil rig unless you've done emergency crash landing helicopter training,
Ooh, yeah, that has done
which
it.
involves you being strapped into a helicopter and dumped in a swimming pool, and then having to bash the glass out. And I talked to Laurie about it because he'd done it because he had to shoot on a thing, and he said it was beyond terrifying. And the bloke next to him just was going like this, pum pum pum, and he couldn't get the window open. And Laurie's like sat there strapped in going, and it's all my nightmares that I just.
Yeah, no, all right, fine. I'll stop that then.
Do it as a set. You'd have to do it as a, or you could. I tell you what, the way to do it would be maybe you could get away with doing it in port in Scotland before it goes out to sea.
Yeah. Like, have you been to that? You know, the oil rig graveyard that's in Scotland, and there's just tons of them all in this one little area that aren't used anymore.
Right.
It is
I
pretty.
don't know. That sounds brilliant.
Yeah, it's like, but they're quite far away, so you just stand there looking at them like a bit of a train spotter or something, and it's like, oh.
You could call the script Rigged.
Oh, there you go, smashing it. And I can just imagine the poster now as well, like a gun in a hand. Yeah. Really gonna smash the box office, that one.
No, it's the guy who's got to go and look after the oil rigs that have been left abandoned. But then there's a criminal gang doing something in one of them, and he uncovers it. It's like, oh no, and then he's like running around on the rig. But he used to work on the rig back in the 80s, so he knows all the internet.
Got the layout down.
Yeah.
All right, if you could like ask Amy if she could smash that out so that I could go and see some.
Yeah, doing a film called Rigged. Yeah.
Real career hire for everyone. Yeah. All right, have I got to stop asking things now or no? Am I meant to carry on?
I don't know. I think you've done your 45 minutes.
Yeah, just desperate to get going. I'm like, I'm done, Ben. Like, yeah, that's me
Well, you
done.
might have a closing question. What's your closing question then? What's that?
I don't know. Can you give me one to repeat back?
Oh, what drew you to the actors? That's the one, isn't it? I always ask that. Why did you choose the actors for the roles?
Go on.
Just a classic. I mean, it's that one. What drew you to the material? Did anything go really wrong? Which is like, why would you ever answer that question? That's the one. That's the one that blows my mind. What went really wrong?
Yeah.
What was the funny thing that happened on set?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, all those.
Nothing. Are they hoping for like? Do you remember like when James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender were doing all them films together, and then they always had like these amazing stories that they were like, I don't know, had BB guns and they were on set playing with, and it makes them sound like the best of friends. And I imagine everyone's hoping for like something magical, like you all had a water fight in the stately home, like Laurie was involved, everyone.
Yeah. Or that there's, hey, he's a real joker, and there's he put cellophane over the toilets and someone had a wee in the night and it splashed all over the bathroom. That seems to be the one that comes out a lot, doesn't it? But no, I mean, I never, usually I've only had really good experiences on set usually, and it's always gone quite smoothly. And those kinds of questions become, you just kind of, no, it was all right. It was fine. I think I answered one yesterday and it was like, what was the hardest thing? I was like, working with the dogs.
Very exciting answer there.
Yeah, that's one for, that's one for to teach at the NFTS, isn't it? No, I don't know. I think it was, the dogs are swines though, but there you go. That's just dogs. They don't understand.
No, they don't. Well,
They can't read, can they? So how are they to know?
Whenever I like shout something at Eddie, I just feel like I'm shouting like, read that book, and it's like just not fair, is it? That I'm shouting, get that out of your mouth, and it's like, well.
Yeah, all he understands is oh.
Yeah.
But also, apparently, I read the other day, which I was shocked by, is that dogs just see you as just a blob. Your face is like a blob. I don't understand any expressions. They can smell you a bit, but if you're going, they're going like, I don't know what you're doing. I don't recognise you.
That's a bit sad. I thought he knew when I was smiling at him, but you don't. No,
No, maybe you can just smell it coming out
it's the mouth being slightly open.
on that bombshell.
Yeah. Do we have to do like an awkward sign off, or no? Is this enough that we've asked if we have to do one? I hope so.
They're just going to fade out slowly, fade out to black.
Right. Yeah.